Kent, at the time of the case, as a young principal and on track for CD&R partnership, describe the feelings you had when the French pulled the distribution plug.
You really feel terrible. You feel like you let your partners down. You feel like you let your investors down. But you have to regroup, and you have to regroup pretty quickly. And one of the important things about this business, either when you're buying a company or you're managing a company or you're selling a company, is you can't get too emotional. And that was really one of the lessons learned with this surprise. You have to be clinical, you have to be logical, you have to make fact-based decisions. And I think the good news here is we did identify this as a risk in our due diligence, and a significant risk at that. And we had contingency plans in place that we put in before closing. And some of those plans revolved around going to different suppliers and saying, hey, if L'Oreal were to own their own distribution, you would not be prioritizing their distribution system, so you really want to be with an independent. We went to the sales force and said, we realize that your basket might be a little bit smaller now without the L'Oreal product, but here are some retention bonuses, and here's a path that we see to getting you back to the earnings capability that you had prior to losing the L'Oreal business. And so we had these communication plans, we had these incentives plans ready to go, and the day after we received this notification, we began to implement them. And the result was better than our anticipated outcome. We had run many cases, as you can imagine, about what the business would look like under this scenario, what type of fixed cost absorption we would lose. But the execution of this plan, because of our operating partner, Jim Burgess, and Gary Winterhalter, the CEO, and frankly, the cooperation of all of our salespeople, all of our supplier partners, we came out of this stronger than we ever thought we would, and put Sally Beauty on a basis that's stronger today than it was when L'Oreal was such a significant supplier.
Sector development. Now a partner and the sector leader for retail, tell us about the evolution of your retail deal criteria and the development of a toolkit to create value at the retailers you buy.
So in terms of criteria for retail, we like to keep it relatively simple and straightforward. And so we have 4 key elements that we look for in any retail investment. The first is we like market leaders in fundamentally healthy segments. Market leaders are important because they have scale and the inherent scale advantages that come with that. And fundamentally healthy markets to us means secularly growing industries that are less cyclical than others. We will invest behind some degree of cyclicality, but we've got to be able to understand it, and it's got to be relatively minor. I'd say the second criteria is high service component, really where the retailer is creating a relationship with their customer. This is important from a competitive standpoint because it takes pressure off of price and creates more of a retail experience. Over the last few years, it's become even more important with the internet and with what Amazon is doing with disintermediating retail. And so the higher the service component in any retailer, the less of a threat online is. The third criteria is sustainable competitive advantage. This is incredibly important, obviously, in any sector we look at, but particularly important in retail. And one of the areas that we like to see is in supply chain. So is there a sustainable competitive advantage in being able to procure the right product at the lowest cost with the highest inventory turns? And often if we can find and identify the leader in those areas, those capabilities are sustainable and will create growth and margin over time. The last criteria is really simple, which is we only want to invest in companies we can help. And when we think about where we can help, we like to help grow the top line and we'd like to help grow the gross margins because we think those areas are sustainable. An SG&A opportunity is interesting, but we find that it's limited. And we find that once you make SG&A improvements, that runway is over. And so what do we do? How do we look at revenue growth? How do we look at gross margin improvement? We look for things like, do they have a CRM program, right? Do they really understand their customer base, why their customers are buying, where they're buying? Is there ability to access that customer differently? And oftentimes we find, even with very good retailers, the amount of customer data is insignificant. And so we can build data capabilities and data analytic capabilities that allow us to access that customer when that customer wants to be accessed. We can market differently, we can sell differently, and we can drive the top line of the business. Other areas we look for is professionalizing pricing, where we can determine certain markets, we can price differently than other markets. Certain times of the year we can price differently than other times of the year, and this is obviously highly accretive to our margins and again, a sustainable improvement to the business. And finally, we look for category management. Oftentimes when we look at retail businesses, we find that they're inventorying the same products at the same levels everywhere in the country. And as we all know, different parts of the country, whether it's the Northeast or the Southwest, have different buying attributes. It might be climate-based, it might be based on a number of different factors, but once you have the data, you can understand what those customers are buying and when, and inventory those stores appropriately.